In addition to the eternal marriage ceremony, Mormon initiates are required to engage in a number of occultic rites inside the temple, including a bizarre ritual known as baptism for the dead.
Brother Pratt, having authority, I wash you preparatory to receiving your anointings for and in behalf of John Kimball, who is dead, that you may become clean from the blood and sins of this generation.
Sister Bradford, I wash you preparatory to you receiving your anointings for and behalf of
Eliza Barrett.
Eliza Barrett, who is dead, that you may become clean from the blood and sins of this generation.
Chuck Sackett is a former Mormon temple worker who conducted thousands of ceremonies during a 9-year period at the Los Angeles Temple in California.
After entering the temple, men and women are separated. These initiates or patrons first enter a dressing area where they are instructed to remove all their clothing, which is then placed in a locker and locked with a key. Their naked bodies are covered with a poncho-like sheet called a shield.
I wash your head, that your brain and intellect may become clear and active.
Your eyes, that you may see clearly and discern between truth and error.
Your nose, that you may smell.
Ceremonial washings, anointings, and blessings are then performed on each part of the body by a temple worker.
And in the spine.
Your breast, that it may be the receptacle of pure and virtuous principles.
Your vitals and bowels, that they may be healthy and strong and perform their proper function.
The initiates are then dressed in the garments of the holy priesthood, which must thereafter be worn 24 hours a day, every day of the year, with certain exceptions for public athletic events and bathing. But for many devout Mormons, they are not even removed for moments of physical intimacy.
It will be a shield and a protection to you against the power of the destroyer until you have finished your work on the earth.
This magic underwear acts as an occultic talisman, supposedly providing the wearer with protection from satanic forces and their terrible consequences, so long as it is worn constantly and temple vows are kept.
All who have entered a Mormon temple must swear a blood oath not to reveal any of the secrets they have learned under the penalty of death.
The sign is made by raising the right hand.
The first token of the Aaronic priesthood represents having your throat slit from ear to ear and having your tongue torn out by its roots.
The execution of the penalty is made by placing the right thumb under the left ear, drawing the thumb quickly across the throat to the right ear, and dropping the hand to the side.
The first token of the Melchizedek priesthood represents having your belly ripped open and having your vitals and bowels gush out upon the ground. The wording has now been revised to be less offensive, yet each patron still swears an oath that rather than reveal these secret words and gestures, he would agree to be killed by the priesthood.
Our living prophet has told us there are three purposes of the church. One is to proclaim the gospel that we've talked about. The other is to perfect the lives of the saints. And the third is to redeem the dead. Consequently, we're actively engaged in doing research work of names and places of birth dates of our families, as well as all other mortals that we possibly can.
In recent years, the Mormon Church has resorted to using their Baptism for the Dead program as a recruiting technique. They have begun targeting potential converts by telling them that they can provide salvation for their unsaved loved ones who have already died, thus deceiving vulnerable people with a false sense of hope. Ed Decker is a former high-ranking Mormon who spent 19 years in the church before having his eyes opened to such anti-biblical heresies.
Among the Mormon temple rituals is the practice of baptism for the dead, when the dead are called up to convert to Mormonism. During these ceremonies, many Mormons have had exhilarating and even frightening encounters with apparitions or spirit beings inside the temple. Former Mormon prophet Wilford Woodruff admitted to being surrounded by the dead at one point while inside the temple, and warned that the dead will seek out others who enter the temple. Joseph Smith was a sorcerer and practiced crystal ball gazing, or fortune-telling, and was convicted of this practice by the New York courts. Smith's practices of magic and necromancy led him annually during a witchcraft holy day to the Hill Cumorah in New York, specifically to seek encounters with a spirit being called Moroni. During this time, he would attempt to conjure up the spirit from the dead. There is strong evidence that in 1824, Joseph Smith actually had to dig up the body of his dead brother Alvin and bring part of that body with him to the hill Cumorah in order to gain access to the gold plates on which were written the Book of Mormon. After his death, Smith was found to be carrying a magic talisman on his person, sacred to Jupiter, designed to bring him wealth, power, and success in seducing women.
In Deuteronomy chapter 18, the Bible warns against participation in all witchcraft-related practices, since they can lead to spiritual deception and a rejection of the truth. There shall not be found among you anyone who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead, for all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord. John Heinerman, director of the Anthropological Research Center in Salt Lake City, is an active and devout Mormon who candidly admits to the Latter-day Saints' involvement in occultism.
I, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, am somewhat active in what is called the New Age movement. The New Age movement consisting of things like crystal gazing, channeling, pyramid power, and so forth and so on. People of the New Age movement are often more open to the truths of Mormonism, like the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith working with the Urim and Thummim, than conservative Christian folks who are mostly closed-minded to these things.
Although claiming to be a Christian religion, the Mormon Church does not display any crosses on any of its properties. However, the inverted pentagram, which is known to be the highest satanic symbol, is featured extensively on Mormon temples and other church structures. For those who may find it hard to believe that Mormonism has more in common with Satanism than Christianity, one need only look at the 3rd chapter of Genesis, where it is Satan himself who promises godhood to Eve in the Garden of Eden.